The Premier League title race is back on. And is it time for Chelsea to sack Graham Potter? There is lots to get through on this episode. Roll that intro. Here we go. Hello and welcome back to the Lost in Possession podcast. First thing is first, if you're not already, hit that subscribe button. Give us a follow if you're listening on Spotify. It helps us to help you with better content every single week. We won't hang about. There is lots to get through in this episode. First and foremost, we have got the title race. A lot of people, Reece included, thought it was all over. But with a dramatic weekend of fixtures and results, it is very much back on. We will also get to the state of Chelsea Football Club with Graham Potter as well. But we will kick things off at the top of the league. So, Arsenal, dramatic comeback, 4-2 away to Villa, and Man City drop points away to Forest. Jamie, we'll start with the team who seemingly struggled at the weekend and dropped points at a key time. City, it's basically a loss, let's be fair. Talk to us. You were at the game.
Yeah. At Forest, new ground. I was quite happy to go. To say we struggled is it's just not true. we didn't struggle whatsoever. We only struggled to put the ball in the back of the net after countless chances. I haven't actually seen the XG. I should have seen that, but I'm sure it should have been about four goals to probably their one chance that they scored. But during the game, when you miss chances like that to anyone in the league, you're probably going to get punished. And I texted you 10 minutes before the goal they scored the goal. I went, we've missed way too many chances. They're going to have their first shot on target and score. And lo and behold, it happens. It's sort of what's not disheartening, because I agree, Jordan, it is like a loss because we shouldn't. In the game, we controlled so much chances that we missed. That's like a loss. And I think Kyle Walker even said after it's not acceptable. I think he's probably a bit harsh in terms of things, because any other day we win that game 4-0, laughing, joking, going, we're joint top of the league, top on goal difference. It was just one of those days. We'll come back, we'll perform exactly the same way, and we'll win 4-0, and that could be against anyone. So I'm not concerned in that aspect, because obviously we had the massive high during the week against Arsenal, beating them. That was sort of it was a completely different performance in terms of we had 70 odd possession against Forest and then only 36, something like that, against Arsenal. We should have won both games, really. That's just the way it is, though. I still think I've got to try and be optimistic. We've currently gained a point on Arsenal from, if you look before the Arsenal game.
That's clutching. That is clutching at straws.
It's clutching. But I still said to you both last week, I would have taken a draw against Arsenal, thinking we'd go and win on the weekend. And that would have been then still the sort of 6-point gap to the 5-point gap. Kind of it is. I think we can still do it based off. I think we will get more points over it, and we've still got to play Arsenal at the Etihad. So it's still huge games. I think probably bring it on to Reece about Arsenal from their perspective. What did you make of the two games, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I remember saying last week that I thought that we'd try a little too hard against City, and I think that was the case of just like running out of steam. I still don't believe we'll win the league. I just don't think our games are in our favour. Everyone goes on about the game in hand, but you do have to win your other games, so it becomes obsolete, really. I think what was a relief at Villa is that we won without necessarily playing well. If you look at the games we've won all season, it's because we've been better. let's be honest, we've gone toe to toe and beaten them all, comfortably or ground out the result. This time we needed luck, and we got some luck off the back of Martinez's head, and then of course his decision to come up and ignore the coach's orders and allow us to break. That was a big relief because it proves that, okay, when you're not playing well, you can still nick the 3 points. That's important. However, of course, they've got to build on this again next week against a vastly improved Leicester. It just doesn't look easy. Whatever league, whatever game there is, there's still so many to go, but it's massively important that they use that momentum and take it into the game on Saturday. But yeah, it's a great result to see. I mean, I think City will still see it as a point gained. Yes, they were better than Forest, but at the end of the day, it's still a point. But of course, there's Man United now, very much looking over. We're looking over our shoulders at them because the momentum under them right now is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think to the Arsenal win for me, again, it shows a bit of what we thought Arsenal had suddenly lost. We thought the momentum had gone. We thought their heads had gone down. And I do think, again, to go back to our previous point, this is a different Arsenal side we're witnessing here. There's no way, we can talk about them being a momentum team, as we've said before. And maybe that's still true, but we're seeing resiliency. I've said it before, we're seeing resiliency out of this Arsenal team that we've not seen ever. Or when I say ever, I mean, 10 years plus. Like, that is a game last season. You go 1-0 down, you go 2-1 down, and you just fold. You don't win, you don't come back, you don't threaten. And again, I slightly disagree with you, Reece. I think in the second half, you did play well and you did deserve to win. You look at the XG 100% supports that. You look at Odegaard's miss with 10 minutes to go, one of the worst misses of the season. And then you go and score, somehow still go and score 2 more. A little helping hand from Martinez, perhaps. But the reality is you're getting in these tough situations and you keep finding ways to come back.
Yeah, we needed the luck. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
We needed that little bit of that odd deflection, that odd bounce, just to give us something. Because I think when you get that, it does give you that hope that you can achieve. You can't win every game just by being the better team. You do need some luck, whether it's in your favor or out of your favor.
That Villa game was it did not matter how you played, you just had to win. That's really all it came down to. It did not matter because you went from the Everton, Brentford, City results. It was just to get out of that small rut that you will get, like, people who thought Arsenal were going to match their first 50 points in the first half of the season with the second didn't realise that teams just get in these ruts. Like, it's sometimes small, and that's what helps you go on to get the 90 odd points that City and Liverpool have been doing. And that's what Arsenal need to do. They need to hope that's their rut's done. And they might have another small one, which is 1 or 2 games, but they can't have tons and tons more if they're going to get to, like I say, the 90 odd points. I don't actually think you need 90 points to win the league. I think it will be a bit lower. But yeah, that game, it was just, it did not matter, especially how you actually technically won it. Forget the 4th goal. It's the 3rd goal where it's come off the defender's, the goalie's head. I'd left at the pub and was walking towards the Forest ground, and I just jokingly said, "Oh, Arsenal are going to score. It's going to be a Martinez own goal." And sadly, I was bloody right. And the 2 calls I made on the weekend, I was right, and I wish I put money on them.
Should have asked you for the Saturday night lottery numbers, perhaps.
Yeah, pretty much. It was not great from my perspective, but it happens. Every team will get it in one way, shape, or form. Although this is probably what you had Lloris just throwing it in before in the derby. Now you got the Martinez header back in the goal.
But I think every team who wins the league, you might say, "Oh, City weren't lucky," even when you won. Every single team who wins the Premier League gets luck at some point. But over the course of the season, if you're top, you deserve to win.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's them decisions that you just see in little decisions, little moments in games. So maybe we were wrong. Maybe it's not over.
I don't think it was ever over. I think only well, I guess Arsenal fans thought it was over because they thought they've sort of folded, and they thought City are going to be like they have been in previous years where they go and win 10 games on the trot. We're not that team at the moment. So that's where I feel like it was a bit preempt them going, it's over, it's dead. Even though if you look at Arsenal fan TV, the contrast in space of 4 days of the videos, title race dead, done. Oh, it's back on. We're going to win it. It's quite funny.
Arteta out brigade. I'm sure they were Arteta out about 74 times, and then
they shouldn't have him out. I mean, I think it's still a year or two too early. I think for us.
Yeah, but it's obviously you're much
giving it a try.
Arteta's admitted he had a plan, and you're ahead of that plan. Of course you are. Like, I think us three did not. I don't think any of us had Arsenal top 4 at the start of the season. So it shows how much you've progressed in a quicker time frame than you expected. I think we should move on to the third team coming into this title race. And I don't like saying it, but it looks like Man United are joining the title race. Do you two agree that they're in the title race? Because currently they're 5 points off Arsenal, and Arsenal have a game in hand. Do you still think they're in the title race, or do you think it's overhyped media?
For me, 100%, they're in the title race. The form and the momentum they've found out of seemingly nowhere is just mind-blowing. And again, it'll be relevant, for our second topic of today, but Ten Hag didn't have the best start at Man United in the short term. And there was a lot of people already going, oh, he's out of his depth. What's he doing? Absolute fast, etc. The usual, Twitter crowd. And lo and behold, they've now put on one of the most ridiculous sort of short-term runs out of nowhere, for any big club we've seen in a while. And we've got to give Rashford ridiculous amounts of credit, because he has single-handedly carried Man United through this run. But they're in it. The form they're in at the minute, you cannot deny they are in it. They're the most informed team out of the top 3. They've got the most momentum, I'd argue, at this point. Again, short term, but it looks like they're just going to win every game at the minute.
You say that just about the form, Jordan, but if you look at the last 5 games, they've matched City and Arsenal have dropped, I think, 1 point difference. It might be a bit more than that with the Arsenal one. So it's not actually as good as it's not like they've actually won the last 5. That's the only argument I'm making. It does seem it because they're winning quite well. That it is sort of like, if when I watch in Sky Sports, I would then believe in my head that they've won the last 5. So there is slight. I do think that's why I mentioned the media before, because they do hype up United more, and that's what they're going to do. That they're going to do it with Liverpool, and they're going to do it with United, in terms of hyping them up a bit. And sometimes it's actually blown out of proportion. But I would agree, I think they're in the title race, because you were classing City in the title race in the exact same position what United are off Arsenal. So I think it's only fair you actually do put them in a race. And yeah, Rashford is being that one who's, I wouldn't say single-handedly, I think you're being a bit unfair on a few others. Sort of Casemiro's done wonders for that midfield. Bruno Fernandes is popping up at the right times. And then you've got to look at the defence. Luke Shaw's been good for very good since the World Cup. Martinez, United fans are telling me he's the best centre-back in the league. I think it's a bit too much, but they're clearly very happy with him. He's doing a big job for them. Reese, now you're very pessimistic. Will United catch Arsenal? If you think City are, do you think United will?
Yeah, they can do. You can't say they can't until it's mathematically impossible.
No, but I'm saying, will they? It's a yes or no. It's not they can, they can. I want a yes or no answer from you.
Before I give you my yes or no, my concern is the only disadvantage for them is they've already played Arsenal and City twice each. So they have to rely on pretty much the other two dropping points. And I do think United are prone to a silly defeat, as we saw with Villa, as we saw with Brentford, as we saw with Brighton. Particularly, I think they're still capable of doing that, but the momentum is on their side. I think it comes down to how Arsenal and City treat themselves. Like, it comes down to how Arsenal deal with Leicester next week, or West Ham away, or Liverpool away, Chelsea at home. It comes to those games where Man United were going to have to pounce. They've got to. And it'll be the same for City if they go away from home, or they've still got Liverpool to play, for example, and they slip up at home.
So with that, Liverpool are very much involved in this. They've got to play all three of us. United and Arsenal have got to go to Anfield. Liverpool have got to go to City. And so Liverpool are a massive part of this title race, not in the way they thought they would be or want to be, but they're a part of it due to how much they can influence it.
No, and that's an important thing to note. Like, that's where I think it has to come down to it. Like, United will have to capitalize. If you look at them against Leeds the other week where they drew 2-2, it was them sorts of things where they're capable of messing up, and then they go away to Leeds that Sunday and beat them 2-0. So it just goes to show how they're capable of doing it on their day, but they're going to have to hope that, the other two teams slip up in those banana skins. But they're definitely in it. They're definitely in it if Rashford keeps carrying them, absolutely. I think Martinez has been outstanding. I think Casemiro has been a great buy for them. They've got all the makings to do it. It's just doing it. If you look at them at Leicester, they could have been 2-0 down at home to Leicester pretty quickly, which they weren't. It's irrelevant now, but would City have killed them for that? Would Liverpool kill them for that following Liverpool's performance at the weekend? They could do. So that's the only difference for me with them at the moment, but they're definitely in it. And I think both teams should look nervously over their shoulder because they can catch them. I think that Eric Ten Hag and with Man U, they've won the most games out of all of Europe's top 5 leagues, and I think that's all competitions or something like that.
Yeah, but they're in
the League Cup will help that because they're in the final, and the Europa League will help with that. But it's still an interesting stat. Nonetheless, I think he's transformed them better than anyone else, and he hasn't gone out there. Yes, he signed Casemiro, but he hasn't had to have made, those big name signings all the other managers have had. He's bought players that fit his system. That's what it is. That's what he's been doing. And I'll say this again: he's been a manager, not a coach. After that Brentford game, he dropped Ronaldo. He made that decision and he handled the decision brilliantly. And look at the benefits it's given them since then. So can't fault him for that.
Yeah, I do have to say, he has had a lot to deal with. Like, he's had a few things and he has dealt with them well. Ronaldo being one, Sancho being another. Although I feel like they're a bit that couldn't happen at many other clubs. Sort of sending Sancho away for 3-4 months to not even be around the squad. It's not something, that's not something teams lower down could do. You couldn't see Brighton throwing their best player, just picking a player, sort of like McAllister gone for like 3 months. You can't have that. So it's sort of a bit of luxury on that part, but he's dealt with it so well, I think. With them, I think winning the League Cup could be a very good start for them towards the title push, because a lot of teams, I've seen it myself, I've seen Chelsea do it as well, winning the League Cup then pushes you on to go and win the title.
Yeah, they're looking good. And I think finally, before we sort of move on, I think their only sort of drop points recently was Leeds. And that was the new manager bounce. And as we know, that is the most powerful weapon in football at the minute. And I guess I'll let you guys speak first on our next topic, but that moves us on nicely as we discuss new manager bounces. Southampton, bottom of the league, new manager comes in, they sack Nathan Jones, and then they go and get a win away at Stamford Bridge. Before I get deep into this, Jamie, we'll start with you. Graham Potter and Chelsea. What are your thoughts? Should he be sacked? Should he stay? Because it seems to be dividing the internet.
It's a tough one, to be honest, because the form is sackable, and if it's Abramovich, he probably would be gone by now. I think it's obviously Boleys is different, but the argument I have is you spent so much money in January, so much money. You're probably going to go and spend some more. You're going to spend more in the summer. It can't just be buying a random player, like a bunch of random players. It's got to be for some reason. I don't know who's in control of it, if Bowley is in control, and then saying, "Oh, Potter, I've bought this player, by the way," or it is they're having a discussion, going, "What do we need? Okay, we want a winger." Bowley gives you like 3, 4 names. Got these three. They're all young. Blah blah blah. Can get them. Okay, do that. It could be something like that. It depends. If Bowley's the one taking full charge, then Potter's not really getting his say to build his team. That would be more concerning for his job. If that's the case, then I think he probably should be gone, because the form's just sackable. It's relegation form. Like it's two wins in the last 14. Jordan did probably want to say it's not 15. The 15th game was a friendly. I'll put it out there for him that people were saying around the internet. But that is sackable form. Sean Dyche has come into Everton and got the same amount of wins in 3 games. That's just, I know that it's completely different on who you. Well, no, it's not really, is it? You're playing bottom of the league and you're still losing. So something's got to give. But I feel like he's going to get time. I don't see the point in sacking Tuchel and then sacking Potter in one season.
No, it is pointless. I mean, you do look at the record. Won 9, lost 9, drawn 7. It's not the worst. It's really not that bad. And if you look at how many games where they should have won it, they just didn't convert their chances. You have to feel like eventually it should click, especially with the players they've got. There's definitely an imbalance in that team that I think he needs to address by trimming the squad, and bringing more of his own players. But like everyone's saying about needing a striker, but like he had a striker at Brighton and Neil Maupay didn't exactly bang in the goals for him, but he got results. So he relies on the rest of the team, by the sounds of it, to all contribute. It's going to take time. People want to give managers time, but then they don't. And it's the whole point is the whole point as well. If you don't want a manager and you want to bring in a coach, well, you can't coach people over the course of 2 months. You have to train people. We all do it throughout life. You can't just learn it straight away. So if Todd Boehly, which I think he will keep with Potter, Todd Boehly is an American owner. American owners are often very patient because their sports rely on this coaching method. Building a team, building a team. That's what they do. That's the point of it. It makes perfect sense. And this is where the game is heading, but we'll discuss that for another day. Obviously the money involved, the money losing in the Premier League is very much a big gamble. That's the only problem. Finishing 2 places higher or 3 places lower could lose millions. But you've got to understand sometimes you've got to take 2 steps forward to make it, to then push forward. Arteta is proving that if you do that, it can work. So you have to, stay calm and just be like, okay, then maybe just write this season off. But we've got the players to build something. Hope for next. It's not been great, but you only lost to a free kick. Let's be honest. Last week, a direct free kick. So it's just one of those.
Yeah, and James Ward-Prowse, by the way, we got to shout the man out. I mean, he's record, I think 17 Premier League goals from free kicks now. He's close to equaling Beckham, and he's just unreal. Like, simple as that. He's just unreal at free kicks. But from my side, I've got so much to say, but it's a real tough call for Boehly. And although he's spent so much money, this is a real early test of his resolve as an owner, because we're seemingly so desperate to begin this new era, move on from the past. And, the sacking of Tuchel, it felt like that was a throwback to the Abramovich days. But the hiring of Potter then goes against that. And I think every Chelsea fan thought that the hiring of Potter is going to be, right, we're building for the long term. And people understood that. And let's go back, to September when we hired him. if you asked any football fan in a lot in England, but in any country, who's a great manager now with a lot of potential, everyone would have said Graham Potter. Let's not forget that. Like, you don't become a bad manager in a matter of a few months. And I think the situation we're in, particularly the fans turning on Potter, is just such a summary of modern day football. There is absolutely zero patience whatsoever. And you look back, probably Sir Alex Ferguson's the best example, maybe Arsene Wenger. We are past those days, sadly, but you're not in this position now where managers will stay and genuinely be given time. Now, I don't know, we can get political and philosophical about all the reasons as to why, but we're in a different world of football. And the modern day manager does not get time. And I think the problem for Potter is I feel like he's lost the fans. And look, I'm not going to say that based on Twitter, right? But there's been a few fan pages going, oh, we're going to have a protest to get him out of the club. There's, Potter out trending. And I'm not saying that represents 100% of the fan base, but, I've seen plenty of, clips and stuff, and it's getting very, very toxic already. Now, again, I'll let you guys go on before I say all my points, but the issue is, for me, why have we hired Graham Potter? Because Reece, as you said, maybe it's an American style, whatever, but you want to get a good manager who's been proven in the past with long-term projects, who can hire his own squad, build his own playing style. So if you're going to get in a long-term manager, why are you going to sack him based on short-term results? Like, if you're getting a long-term manager, judge him on long-term results. Now, the current season, right, we're 10th in the league. It's very apparent we're not going to get Champions League, without a shadow of a doubt. Europa League's looking potentially unlikely unless we do a sort of Man United spin on form and go on a crazy run, which under Potter, I have to be honest, is unlikely right now. The Conference League, many would argue it's more of a curse than a gift, or whatever, however you want to look at it. So I don't think, other than the fans losing faith and a bit of bad atmosphere, I don't think we've got much to lose in the short term by keeping him. It's not like we, all the jokes, we're going to get relegated, all that BS, right? Obviously, jokes aside, we're not in a relegation battle. Like, it's bad, but it's not that bad. So the difference between 10th place and 12th, I know that sounds ridiculous to say, but the difference between 10th and 12th place isn't a lot, right? So there's not much downside other than the toxic nature and whatever. There's not much downside of keeping him right now. We're not suddenly going to lose a Champions League spot that we're not going to get anyway. So my take on it is, you can't judge him. You can't judge a long-term manager on short-term results. And you're either trusting the process or you're not. And I just, at the minute, again, I've got more to say, but I'll circle back around to you guys on that. The form is sackable, as you said, Jamie, but I think you need to give him a bit more time to implement a playing style before just sacking him.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you have to be able to put your, and this is also the thing, he hasn't had like a pre-season. He's come in, I know it's been a while, he's had the World Cup, but the World Cup, all the players have gone. So, and then you've gone and signed a fair few in the January window. So he's not really had like a pre-season to sort it out, really. And from sort of, speaking of City aspects, we saw Pep in his first season, didn't do that great. Like, we came fourth. And there were a few times where we had one of his worst results where we got battered 4-0 by Everton, and people were like, Pep can't do this in the Premier League. I had the pre-season, obviously had one before, but had the proper pre-season after training throughout the year. Bang, 100 points. You do have to give him time. You're seeing Arsenal with Arteta doing it as well, giving him time. So that's where I slightly disagree with you, Jordan, saying about the modern manager. If you'll get it depends on the owners. whether you're going to get sort of the long-term strategy. And that's where Arsenal are implementing it, because they could have easily got sacked Arteta last year.
Yeah.
Then City, there's probably not been a case where you've been sacking Pep, but he's, in my opinion, one of the greatest managers ever. So it's hard to put him in the same sort of category in with others. But you do sometimes get a bad fit of a manager for a club. I'm not saying this is of Potter. Doesn't mean he's a bad manager if it doesn't work at Chelsea. He could then go to another club. I'm just going to pick Fulham, for example, and then turn them into like what Brighton are doing, although they're fairly up there with Brighton anyway at the moment. But it's sort of, and actually they're above Chelsea. Sorry, had to add that in. But it's sort of, it's sometimes it's just not a fit, and that could be the step up from a Brighton to a Chelsea that could just fall short, where he could be better doing the England job, for example. It depends. So I think you've got to stick out with him. Like you say, Jordan, there's not much to lose, but it's more, do you just try and get some bounce? Like if you sack him, try and get some manager bounce and try and win the Champions League again.
Well,
like that's it. To be honest, you sacked. Who did you sack? And then you got Tuchel in.
Yeah. So
and
it
then
was.
you sacked Lampard, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you got Tuchel in, and you won the Champions League. And at that point, when Lampard got sacked, no one had you down to win the Champions League. No one, like you yourself wouldn't have actually gone, yeah, we've got a realistic chance. It's so that's the only plus I can see. But who are you going to bring in? Like, who actually are you going to bring in? So that's where I feel like there's not much out there that you're going to get who's going to turn around and turn this squad around, in my opinion. I think you've just got to be embedding these players, give them 6 months now just to sort of learn the Premier League, learn the tactics, then kick on from next season.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is it. Is Potter's gone from an environment where there wasn't really pressure on him. Ostersund's, Swansea, Brighton. It was all about just, offering something different. And even at Brighton, there still wasn't pressure on him. I think if he'd have finished 17th, he probably wouldn't have been sacked. But he was improving each time. His time at Swansea, he had one season, but he changed that club from top to bottom. Ostersund's took from the bottom to the top. He's now gone into a different environment where the expectations are high. He gets to spend money that he's never had to spend before. He doesn't have to go looking around in, these basement leagues to try and find a gem. He can, if he says, I want him, he can probably have him, and that's, regardless of what Boleys been doing with players, I'm sure Potter's had a say regardless. So it's been, it's that sort of environment for him. He just now needs to maybe just let this season go, calm down as well, because it is too easy to be like, oh, I've got the checkbook. Oh, what am I going to do? How many teams blow that money up the wall? So you can look back on it, go, right, I'm going to take him out. I'm going to take this way. I'm going to introduce this. He's got the ingredients there. He just needs to, finish that off. And I think he'll do just fine. But the problem is how long will he get into the new season? That's the big issue, But again, yeah, and there's also no one else.
What does Bowley expect as well? That's another thing. Does he expect you next season to be fighting City, Arsenal, whoever's up there?
For the money spent, for the money spent next season, you have to deliver.
You have to be fighting for the title.
I think you've got to be in the mix.
At a minimum,
yeah, you've got to be. Yeah. If you're not in the top four and you're not fighting for the top four and by default the title, what's the point of spending that money?
Yeah. So this is it. He might not actually get that long into the new season.
Yeah. Well, he might not make it. That's more the concern.
Yeah, he might not make it, but even if he did, he might not get long after that.
Yeah. And I think, I guess, well, go on. Sorry.
I know that was it.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I guess, firstly, before we sort of wrap up, to make the case for him staying, like, he has come into a very tough environment with a lot of players, maybe a squad you could argue is not his, that he didn't want, players like Aubameyang who were just kind of there. And although, yes, Chelsea have spent everyone says 600 mil, this magical figure. The 600 mil hasn't been spent under Graham Potter, by the way. It's still a lot of money. It's probably 250, 300, but it's not all necessarily Potter's squad, Potter's signings. And there has been a lot of new signings, as we know. Now, I don't think there's any manager in the world, being realistic, that could have that many signings, have a squad of like 32, 33, and actually just be successful like that overnight, get them playing how they want. And when you've got all the pressure and the background noise, remember under Potter, we were sort of playing a 5 at the back. Now he's changed that to a 4 at the back. And you've seen the switch of the system already. And I do think that is a bit of the outside pressure where he's had to he needs results now. So he's had to change things to just try and get short-term results. And he almost ends up going against his own policies. And I think the qualities, some of the qualities, actually, wait, to make my point on the new signing. So against Southampton, 5 out of the 11 starting lineup was new players. So 45% of our starting lineup is new players who we basically signed this season. So we've got to be realistic. Despite the name, he's not a magician, and he's not a wizard, and he's not gonna just click his fingers and everything works out all right. And I think that's what we've got to bear in mind. He's not come out in press conferences and slated players or slated the owners and complained too much. He is just kind of getting his head down, trying to work hard. But ironically, those qualities of him as a person seems to be going against him right now. The fans are going, oh, he's got no fight, he's got no passion. And I think passion is one of the biggest reasons he may end up getting sacked early, because you look at historic Chelsea managers, Tuchel, passion, fighting with Conte, Mourinho, Lampard, passion, love for the club and a bit of fight. And at the minute, we're lacking it from the manager and we're lacking it on the pitch. And I do think if things continue, I still do believe he should be given time. But I'll tell you now, my opinion, if we go and lose to Spurs on Sunday, I might change. Because there's one thing that is absolutely unacceptable, and I don't care who you are, but losing to Spurs as a Chelsea manager or player over the years, look back at the history books, that is the one thing that is unacceptable. And if he's already lost a lot of the fan base, I can tell you now, losing to Spurs, putting up no fight, I think that might just be the end. And well, I guess speaking of the end, that pretty much wraps us up. I could probably go on for hours talking about Chelsea and Potter. One thing I will say though, if obviously we haven't got time to cover it today, but you speak of different managers and new managers. Simeone is available in the summer, and Simeone as a Chelsea manager is something I would absolutely love to see. So if Potter doesn't work out, I might have to backtrack on everything I've said about giving him time. Yeah, someone with fight, someone with passion, someone who get underperforming players delivering and fighting. But time will tell. And that just wraps us up for this week's episode. As always, City, Arsenal, United, Chelsea fans, let us know your thoughts in the comments. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.